Hi guys, welcome to the Definitely Her podcast, our first one. So I'm so proud to be here today. My name's Kerry Tidman, I'm the martial arts therapist, and I have the amazing Charlotte Young with me today. Charlotte, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, thank you so much, Kerry, for having me on the first ever Definitely Her the podcast. I'm very, very privileged. I'm Charlotte. I am 42. I'm from Cumbria, and I have had significant hearing loss for the past sort of 17 years or so. And my journey's been, yeah, pretty mad. So I'm hopefully going to share some of that with you today.
Thank you so much for introducing yourselves. So, guys, I just want to let you know that I'm hard of hearing, and so is Charlotte also. We have the captions on, okay? So you might see us look down, we're using the captions, just thought we'd let you know. So I have a few questions for Charlotte. So, Charlotte, tell me about your hearing journey.
Okay, so I wasn't born deaf. I wasn't born with any hearing problems. And I first noticed them it was about 17, 18 years ago. And it was probably my mum that first noticed that I was missing parts out in conversations. She thought I was being rude sometimes because we were working together at the time and someone would be speaking to me maybe from behind me and I would have missed what they were saying. And she said, yeah, I think you should maybe go for a hearing test. And I was like, don't need to have a hearing test. What are you talking about? And something came up. I think I got like an offer of a free hearing test at Boots. And I went along to have like an eye test and a hearing test on this particular day. I think I was about 24 at the time. And I went along and they did the hearing test. And I remember being sat there thinking, oh, I've aced this. Like, this is fine. And when it came out and he gave the results and he was like, your hearing is like that of about a 70-year-old, I was absolutely gobsmacked. And I mean, to be honest, looking back now, like the worst thing anyone could have said to me, really, like it was not a way for someone to present news like that. But I remember thinking, that's crazy. I don't need hearing aids. I didn't believe it. And I just kind of ignored it, to be honest, and carried on. And things gradually got worse and worse and worse. And it was becoming harder and harder at work. And at that point, because I was working with my mum, she literally became like my ears. And I was very reliant on her without probably realizing. And I think because it happened so gradually, like at home, we all sort of adapted to it. 2014, I had my son, Freddie. And I think we just always, it was always just the norm to him. So just became our way of life. And then in 2015, I remember going to see a private audiologist, and they said that I needed a hearing aid in one side, because they said that one side was worse than the other. And I remember going to that appointment and thinking, it's going to make a massive difference. And, I'm just going to embrace this. And it was the tiniest little hearing aid that I wore to start with. It was a massive, like, shock to the system. I remember wearing it and just feeling like it didn't really make any difference, to be honest. And I felt quite disheartened at that point because I thought that was going to be the answer to everything. It was going to solve all of my sort of problems and everything would be fine, because it was a big adjustment going from all that struggle to then wearing a hearing aid. And for a lot of people that get a hearing aid for the first time, it's a big adjustment. I think for some people they think it's like getting a pair of glasses where you pop on the glasses and it's like ta-da. Yeah. But I think for everyone with hearing loss, like the journey's so different, isn't it? And everybody you speak to, like yourself and me, we've got totally different hearing loss stories, and everyone that you'll speak to will. It's so varied. So that was a massive adjustment. And then I remember trying NHS hearing aids and just wanting to cry because I felt like they were massive, they were heavy, they hurt, and everything just felt so loud. Now, my particular hearing loss, I've got some residual hearing, so I can hear low frequencies. So for anyone that doesn't know that, it's all kind of like men's voices, car sounds, anything that's kind of deep, loud, those kind of sounds, any high frequencies, so things like children's voices, alarms, birds, for example. I completely cannot hear anything. I'm completely profoundly deaf at those sort of frequencies. So it's kind of like a ski slope, my hearing chart. But yeah, I struggled through with the hearing aids from about 2015 to lockdown, actually. On and off, I was using them, and then it got to lockdown, and because everyone was working from home at that point, I completely became reliant on lip reading, Zoom captions, and just muddled my way through. And I still, to that point, kept thinking, but I'm managing, like it's fine. And I went to a routine appointment at my hospital, and they said to me, why don't you look into cochlear implants? And I was like, it's a bit extreme. I remember thinking, that's so extreme, like, I'm not that bad. I don't need to have something like surgery. And so I think for the first time they mentioned it to me, I just completely ignored it. And then I remember the second time I thought, oh, do you know what? I'm gonna look into it. And one audiologist totally sticks in my mind. They said to me, look, why don't you go through the assessment process, look at what it entails. He said, if you look into the process, it doesn't mean you're going to have the operation tomorrow. Like, just go for it, and you've got nothing to lose. Just equip yourself with more knowledge. And I thought, yeah, do you know what? You're right. I deserve it to myself and my family to look into it at least and see what it's all about. Because I didn't really know anything about it, to be honest. And I remember that was in January 2022. And then in the April, I had my first assessment at James Cook Hospital in Middlesbrough. So I had to go quite a distance from where I live in Carlisle. But the team there were just absolutely fantastic. And even from that first assessment, like, I think I went into it a little bit like, oh, well, I'll keep everyone happy and I'll go to the assessment and, we'll just see what they say, but I'm not really going to go through with this. Like, I still at that point thought, I'm not going to go through with this. And at the first appointment, they said to me, well, no wonder you've been struggling with hearing aids, looking at the shape of your hearing loss, because you've got nothing to boost. Like, those hearing aids will not boost any sound you have because you're profoundly deaf at those frequencies. And it literally was like a light bulb moment. And I wanted to hug the audiologist, because I was like, yes, someone finally understands my kind of hearing loss. And I felt heard, for one of the first times. So that was just like incredible. And they explained that I could have something called a hybrid cochlear implant, which means that when they operate, they try and preserve the kind of residual hearing that I've got. Like, fingers crossed, that was the plan. And the implant would then amplify, what I'd lost, what I don't have at the high frequencies. So from the April, I went through some more assessments. It was quite a lengthy assessment process, but so well worth it. And then in the November, I got my date for my big surgery. So off I went, 4th of November. I was absolutely terrified. I'd never had an operation, surgery, anything like it. But speaking to various people that had it done before, looking at different groups online, and because my cochlear implant is with Advanced Bionics, I found that they had a lot of support within their community. They had a lot of resources to tap into, which was really, really helpful. And it's just completely and utterly changed my life. Like, I will be forever grateful for the opportunity and being able to have it done. Like, it's all just this tiny, small things that accumulate, that you think, I'd forgotten about this, and I've forgotten about hearing the birds. So every single day since having that operation, having my activation, as they call it, which is when you get your implant switched on once you've recovered from the surgery, every single day I am grateful just for the tiniest things that day that I can have a conversation again, or can hear the birds, and it still gets me. It's still so emotional, like, and it's to so many people. I think they just think, oh, well, you get the implant, and that's nice. It's just like ding, you can hear, but it's just so much more. Like, anyone that's been through it, anyone that's researching it, any family members and friends know that. But I think to the outside world, they don't quite realize what's involved.
Absolutely. And wow, thank you so much for sharing that story. What a journey. Your hearing loss, especially the sounds very similar to mine. I lost all the high frequency, and it was so difficult, especially to hear children.
Oh.
One thing I wanted to ask you, how did losing your hearing more and more affect your self-esteem and your confidence?
Yeah, massively. And do you know what? It's probably not till now that I look back and realize so many little things that I almost felt like, I remember saying this to my mum, that I almost felt like I'd lost myself in a way, because I used to feel like I was quite sociable and want to be speaking to lots of different people and going out. And I think gradually over time, I just kept thinking, well, there's no point going out there because I can't hear, and it's too stressful, and I'm anxious about that. But I'd always put on a brave face, and probably to loads of people, they would be like, oh, I'd never know. Oh, I'd never know you had hearing loss, because I would put on a great act and think, I don't want them to know that I'm struggling inside and internally feeling. But yeah, it really does knock your confidence in so many ways. You just avoid things. Even just going to places like the shop, I remember thinking, I need to make sure someone's with me, because I'll get to the till and they'll be saying something, and I'm guessing that what I think they're saying, do you want a receipt, or do you want a bag? But then it's
Oh my
like,
God, I can so relate to that. I can so relate to that. And they think you're ignorant because it's a hidden disability. Thank you for answering that so honestly. I can really, really relate to that. And you're absolutely right. It's not until you look back and you know what? I think that I don't realise how much it was actually like stopping me from doing like opportunities, socialising. And I was very the same. You know, I didn't used to like to go out. I didn't like to use, if I went out, I didn't want to go to the bar. I used to think, you know, what's the point? And I think it wasn't until other people started really noticing. I remember being out with my stepmom, and she said to me, Kerry, your hearing's getting so much worse. And I think that she'd never really said that before, but I think I'd always tried to mask it. I'm a very good lip reader. I'm very good at reading body language. But yeah, I think my confidence now, I mean, look at us sat here doing this. What?
I know, I know, it's just crazy, like absolutely crazy to think. It is, yeah, amazing, absolutely amazing.
Wow. For our listeners, I met Charlotte. It October last year.
Yeah. Yep.
We are both advanced bionics mentors, and I'm going to ask Charlotte a question about that in a minute. But I refer to Charlotte and she refers to me as CI besties, and that's because when we met, we just clicked. But I've got to ask you, do you have any funny stories related to your hearing loss or anything like that you'd like to share with us?
Probably, yeah, so many. One that really sticks out in my mind, and I think it's a lot of that, because we try and mask things, like we do I used to fill in the gaps, and you do that when you're lip reading and you sort of guess and it might sound like something. So I think there's so many things, but one really sticks in my mind. I was teaching children at the time, quite young children, and at the start of the lesson we used to always have a bit of a register. We used to gather them around in a bit of a circle, and it would be kind of like, what's everyone been up to? And obviously be looking at, you know, the children as we went around the circle. And we had a teaching assistant with me to support the younger group. And we were going around asking them what they'd done. I think it was after the holidays. And one particular young girl said, oh, I've been on holiday, and I thought, she said, I've had a fantastic time. We went swimming in the sea. And it was the best. And I went, oh, that's amazing. I'm so glad you've had a fantastic holiday. And then the teaching assistant went, Charlotte, no. And I was like, what? And she went, what do you think she just said? And I said, well, she'd been on holiday and she went swimming and it was an amazing time. And she was like, no, she said she went on holiday, she went swimming and nearly drowned. And I was like, oh, just horrendous. Like, I was just felt like I went the ground to swallow me up. But like, fortunately, like all the kids, I think, just kind of laughed and they all knew at that point. We're like, ha, turn your hearing aid up. But I was just like, oh, and just so embarrassing. So embarrassing.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I've had very similar moments. And that's just it's guessing, isn't it? And things that sound like.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for sharing that. So another question I have for you is, like we said earlier, you're an advanced bionics mentor, and that's how we met.
Yeah.
How did you become a mentor? Tell us the story there.
Yeah. So from having my surgery in November 22, and I think I'd been following like Advanced Bionics on social media, and I'd been sort of looking at different community things. And I saw that they had like a bit of a community group and this mentor group on, I think it was on Facebook maybe one day. And I thought, oh, that looks fantastic. And I messaged Catherine, who looks after all of the community mentors, and she's amazing. And I messaged saying, can I get involved? Is there, any way I can like speak to people or chat? And she messaged and said, let's have a chat. Let's have a little video call. And would you like to get involved in being part of the community? And I was like, yeah. So I think that was like in the August or the September, and then we had a kind of first meeting where we sort of collectively get together in October, and that's when I met my CI bestie Kerry, and and we had and just like literally from that moment, it was just the most amazing thing to meet so many different people that have cochlear implants, have hearing loss, deaf journeys, and just to be able to be in a room and you don't feel judged. You feel like people understand where you're coming from without you having to be like, oh, I can't be bothered explaining this. It was just like, I literally just walked in and thought, I've just found like another family. It was amazing. Like everyone was so like-minded.
Everything she said, guys, everything she said, right? That's exactly how I feel. Growing up, I didn't know any other. I went to a normal school. Obviously, my hearing loss has been, obviously, I lost a lot of it when I was around 4. But I still had some low sounds. I had mumps. I found out I was deaf when I was around, I'd say about 9, 10. I went to have my tonsils out. And I was, by the time that kind of found out what was going on, I mean, this was many years ago, I was kind of getting fitted up with my hearing aids going to high school, and they were massive NHS, big, massive, bulky ones. I remember my teacher used to have this thing with a big wire. I think it was like a loop.
Yeah.
Okay. And all the kids used to laugh, and I used to be like, I'm not wearing it. I'm not wearing them. But I never felt like I belonged. And I think that a lot of people with hearing loss I've spoken to feel like that.
Yeah.
We have, like, it's a spectrum. You have people who sign. I don't sign. I don't know if do you sign?
No, I've never signed. No.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. It's a spectrum. But when I think my hospital, they give my contact details to Catherine, who's absolutely amazing. I know she'll be watching this. We love you, Catherine. She emailed me and she told me about it, and I thought, wow, this is amazing. And I think we first had a Zoom with all the community, and then in October, when I came to, was it Manchester?
Yeah,
Manchester. When I came to Manchester and I walked in that room and everybody had a cochlear implant, I just felt like you said, I'm at home, I belong. we all got each other. And for our listeners, we'll tell you a funny thing. We met two absolutely awesome mentors, right? Pete and Pete. And yeah, we just had a wonderful weekend, and we're learning stuff, networking. And you, like you said, you didn't have to explain to anyone, oh, I'm deaf, or can you speak up a little bit? Or, it was lovely.
It was. And it's, like being in the room where it was set up for captions and there was
Yeah.
microphones and there was all the technology. Like, it was just so refreshing not to be like, can you think about me over here that might need some help? Or
You're absolutely so right. I couldn't believe how accessible it was, and the software that they had. When people were live speaking, the captions were on at the back. I'd never ever seen that before. I struggle so much. I mean, I worked for myself for years, but 2 years ago I went back into the corporate environment, and I work, you know, in a high school. But sometimes through business and through my job, we'll go to staff trainings, or we'll go to, like I've been to conferences. I went to this really great conference at the Aston Villa ground, and a lot of people do. When you're filling out the forms, do you have any reasonable adjustments, stuff like that? But so many, there was no captions,
no.
you know. So I did find that, and for us, it's quite tiring.
Yeah.
Even though we have cochlear implants, it doesn't magically restore all our hearing. We hear
Yeah.
completely different.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of that, I know anyone that's got like a cochlear implant will sort of joke and say, like, at the end of the day when you get sort of listening fatigue because you're kind of overloaded with sound, aren't you? And your brain's taking a lot in, and we all say it's nice at the end of the night just to be like, take it.
Switch off. I think I shared it on my Instagram. But sometimes I have something called phantom hearing. Yeah. And it was really funny. One morning, I was talking to one of the other mentors, Jackie, and I was saying to her, like, can't remember if I did an Instagram video, we were talking, and I get up in the morning, I've got nothing, I can't hear nothing, right? Come downstairs, making the cup of tea, the dog was walking around. But even though I didn't have my implant on, I knew what that sounded like. I know what my son's voice sounds like, everything. And Jackie said, that's phantom hearing. I said, I never even knew it had a name.
Yeah. No, I learned something new today. I know, I love that though. It's that is one of the plus points, isn't it, where you can drown out the noise sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I think that the vision for this is, I've been wanting to do a podcast for so long, but I think that, I'm not saying I'm a perfectionist, but I see so many other people have podcasts, and I thought, I really want to do it, but I want it to be accessible. Yeah, I want people from the deaf community to be able to access it, with captions and stuff like that. And I think I was waiting till it was perfect. I was waiting till I knew how to do this. I knew how to do this. But you know what? I'm doing it, and I'm learning along the way. And I think that's sometimes the best way to do things. So we're
Absolutely.
finally, here.
Yeah, no, I love
Oh,
that. And it's what was I gonna say? But I think for me personally, like, I'd never been able to listen to podcasts. So to hear that there's gonna be something out there that people can watch and lip read and look and follow the captions is, yeah, amazing, because it was just so not accessible for me at all before. Like,
yeah.
podcast.
So just before we go, I wanted to say, do you have anything you would say to someone who was considering having a cochlear implant, or they were thinking of, because obviously that's what we are there for as AB mentors,
Yeah.
Do you have anything you'd like to share with someone like that who might be thinking of having one, who's going through the process?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, I think anyone looking into it, get your family, friends, loved ones involved as much as possible, sort of find out as much as you can from the professionals. I did find when I was researching into it that there's quite a lot of stuff online and in some kind of online groups that can be quite negative. It can be quite scary. And I think you can get down a little bit of a rabbit hole. So I would say try and keep your research in the most kind of professional way possible, because your audiology teams will be looking at your hearing loss, and try not to compare other people's experiences sometimes in online groups, because their hearing loss won't be the same. So I think listen to the professional advice, research it, don't be afraid to ask a million and one questions. That's what they're there for. I think that's what the communities are there for. And I know all of our community will always be very open and honest about their experiences and share great tips. I've learned so much from the community, because with the technology, they'll say, oh, have you tried this? And in this environment, maybe go on this program, and it's just, you learn so much from the network. So I think do your research, listen to the professionals, and don't be afraid to ask questions. And it's, and if you do go ahead with it, I hope it all goes as amazingly well as it has done for me and Kerry.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that, that's real, like, honest, everybody, like we've said before, everybody gets a different, experience. Everybody's got different hearing loss, but looking up things online, I'm really glad you made a point of that, because lots of people do that. But I think in the UK, we have a very, very successful cochlear implant program. We're very, very lucky. And I know not all countries have that. When I was looking, I think one thing I would say is, when I remember going through the process and looking at, when I went to the hospital, they were showing me all the different brands. And Advanced Bionics just really stood out to me. And the fact that it was quite a choice lots of people would pick if they were into sports, and I loved, that kind of element on it, and it was quite slim. I just loved the look at it, and the colors you could get. To me, it had everything that I would need, out of a cochlear implant. I'm not saying that the others weren't any good. It's just my lifestyle. It suited my lifestyle a lot better, and that's what I loved about it. I was given different magazines. It was like shopping for a car.
What colour do you want?
This one, and I know. And it was, so that was like, I remember taking them home and having a really good look and comparing the three. I'm really glad I did decide to go with Advanced Bionics. Yeah.
The support, I think, has just been like second to none, and the technology, like obviously now as well, they've got the new remote programming option, so I don't even have to travel to like Middlesbrough necessarily always for my appointments. Now I can do them from home or from work. Like, that is just a game changer for me, because it just makes it so easy to keep your appointments, speak to the team, check everything's working, and you're happy with everything. So it's like peace of mind is amazing for that.
So would you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah,
I mean, I know that I don't think my hospital has that yet. Last time I went, I probably shared with you, and I did put this out there, that I had a little fall in my hall and I knocked my head. It's a massive fear of mine, because we have the outer part, the processor, and we have the inner part, and my audiologist and my surgeon drums it into me, you must be careful. So I had this little fall in the hall, and I knocked the top of my head. It was only lightly, but I was very worried. So I went and got a checkup. They were great. Everything was fine. But she said, oh, I'm going to upgrade you now with the software so you can get remote programming. She was like, even though we don't have it yet, we're still going over the training. So I'm just interested to hear a little bit more from you about that.
Of course. So it only came out, I believe, think at either the end of last year or the start of this year, and I know they kindly invited me to go along and test it for James Cook, and I believe they were one of the first centres to get the kind of clearance to use the software, and I believe it's down to the different hospitals like information governance, and I think it has to go through a sort of code of conduct according to each different centres. I think that's why some hospitals have it before others, and I think it just depends when it falls in the chain of getting sort of checked, I think. So the software program was put on my processor. I'll show it. I'll do a little show on this bit.
Lovely. It's the same colour as mine. I'll have to show mine in a minute.
Yeah,
as
you
well.
must get yours. Okay. So they put the software on my processor, and it took literally 5 minutes. And then they said to me, right now you're kind of download an app. So I downloaded an app on my phone. Took like a minute. I literally went onto the app and it said you've got an appointment with your audiologist. So it's literally like coming to an online platform like Teams or Zoom, just from your phone. Literally clicked like join the meeting. So it's literally in like 5 steps. So really, really simple. I think just before that I had to unclip my battery on my processor. So I took the battery off, turned it on again, and then that was it. Went into the room, and then they can literally log on from their end, and they can see, are the electrodes all, working fine? Is everything looking good on the sort of inside? Then they can change programs, they can add things, they can tweak things. So literally, like, what was for me about a 5-6 hour journey and day to sort of get to Middlesbrough, have my appointment, wait, get parked, come back. I got a speeding ticket once, coming back, parking costs, all that kind of stuff. I was only doing about 34 miles an hour, just, I'm not a petrol head. And so it took, no time at all. And so I thought, that's a whole day that saved me. Like, as much as it's nice to go to see the James Cook team in person, but I thought it's nice to have that option, like to be able to do that as well. And also it's nice that like my son Freddie can get involved with appointments. He can see what it's all about, what the team is saying. And if I wanted to be somewhere like in a set environment, so if I wanted to be at the theatre or I don't know, in a loud kind of bar environment or something, or in my work office environment, they would be able to do that in your setting, which I think is just amazing. And also if you're on holiday, so if I'd had a fall and I was on holiday, for example, I could have said, can I arrange a meet? And they could have literally logged on and said, we can check if everything's looking okay at our end, which just peace of mind, isn't it? Like, you want that peace of mind sometimes.
Absolutely. And that is a total game changer. I mean, I didn't realise you lived that far from the hospital. That's really far. Yeah. I think I live probably about an hour away, but it's time I have to have off work, and I'm I'm a school counsellor in the day, and having time off work, it means I have a lot of catching up to do. I miss seeing some of the kids, and I have to cram things in, and it's having that online is just a game changer, because I could sit at work in my office and and have a check.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, I think it's just incredible.
It's incredible. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, the first Definitely Her podcast. And I think we've spoken about some wonderful stuff. I've really enjoyed listening to your journey and the funny stories and how you become an AB mentor. And I'm sure our listeners will really enjoy listening to. So we're going to say goodbye to our listeners now. Okay, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to our Definitely Her podcast. Bye.